You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Bulldog Hour's 3rd season. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that we have done 9 shows. Well, and shortly we will have done 9 shows in this season alone. It's equally as crazy as the fact that we are done with the regular season.
Yeah.
Like, that's nuts.
Essentially, what is 13 weeks over? Because it's 10 games.
I feel like we were just recapping the end of non-league schedule and into the regular season. I feel like, or the league season. I feel like that's where we were. October was like a blur.
The seven league games went by in a hurry, for sure. But here we are, back-to-back weeks for the first time this year, talking about the Wilson High School football team and how they fared in the 2017 regular season. The finale was just this past Friday. Wilson hosted the Conestoga Valley Buckskins on senior night, and they had a pretty good time with it. I think they may have set a record for points scored in the first half, and they got out of it, I think, pretty much unscathed in terms of injuries, which is good because there will be a second season in West Lawn.
Yeah, I was going to say, as we're introing kind of the episode here, and we keep referring to the regular season, that's a good indicator that there is more than that. Because if there isn't, then it just becomes the season. So.
Yeah, and then we would just be like, "This is it."
Yeah.
But no, we're guaranteed at least one more show.
Right, and that's awesome.
And I hope it's 3 more shows.
Yeah, I hope
would be
I hope
great.
I hope they keep us working for a few more weeks. So,
I would love
awesome.
the opportunity to be broadcasting into December like last year. I believe the first weekend in December is when we had our final episode.
Hey, I agree. But as a theme that we will talk about tonight, we'll start with one more. Let's start with one more show.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's get another one. So
one show at a time, just like the team preaches, the coaches say all the time. One game at a time. We're one show at a time. But here we are, episode 9 of season 3. We're November 5th, 2017. That regular season went by quickly. It just feels like it was 3 months ago, and the acclimatization period was starting. We were conducting our player and coach preseason interviews. We previewed the Mifflin game, and next thing you know, here we are talking about Thanksgiving and District 3 playoffs.
I know. I feel like it was only it only feels like maybe a month and a half ago that I was scurrying to get up to the Parkland scrimmage, and next thing I know, it's the middle of November essentially. It's not quite yet, but it will be by the next time we play a game, and it's just kind of crazy. Like you said, it was a lot of fun this year, and hopefully we can have some more fun. For
sure. So the 2017 regular season, Wilson finished 7-3 overall, 6-1 in the league. If you've been following us, you're probably well aware of that. It's the first time that Wilson hasn't won, I think, 9 games or more in the regular season since 2007. No. But their 6-1 league record, while they weren't able to get a 10th straight section title, league title, they were able to finish second in the league and one of the hotter teams entering the district playoffs, having beaten Hemphill and Conestoga Valley to end the season. And because of them taking care of their own business and other teams playing in a brutal conference in the mid-pen, a few other teams losing.
It's kind of like a perfect storm at the end of the season here.
Wilson is mostly healthy, like I said, on a 2-game winning streak. And, we'll talk about it more in depth later, but the ability to host a playoff game. They got into the top 4 in the District 3 6A power ratings, coming in at number 3. And we'll host a playoff game this Friday, November 10th at Gursky. And we'll talk all about power ratings, brackets, playoff matchups in just a little bit. But obviously, if you're watching this show, you're probably aware that Wilson's got a home playoff game this Friday.
Yeah, so, we'll talk more about that. But, like you mentioned, we had shows early in the season where we were talking about the 1-2 start. And you were pulling out all kinds of stuff. First time it's happened in a long time. Just all that stuff was everywhere, and they rebounded quite nicely. And like you said, they've had their ups and downs, but I think early in the season, I'm not saying it was us, but the things we were saying, I'm sure were common to the things that were being preached to the team, week in, week out, and day out at practice, about the potential of this team and patience and, staying positive and all those things we tried to harp on way back in the beginning of the season. I feel like the team, for the most part, was able to do that and ended up in a good spot here at the end, with the potential, that, like you said, to keep playing for, well, we'll see, but to keep playing, and that's kind of key because, I guess now only 6 teams get to go out with the last game being a win.
Right.
From here on out. I know there are some teams that won last week that are done.
Done, right.
Yeah.
Well, once you make the second season into the playoffs, only 6 teams can finish in December with a win.
Right. So,
Wilson hasn't ever been one of those teams yet, unfortunately. That's the one that the longtime supporters, the old dogs that you can talk to Friday nights, they want that state championship, as all people do in the Wilson community. Obviously, the coaches and players at the top of that list. And they'll get that opportunity to continue that journey. First up, though, is districts, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. We want to recap the Conestoga Valley game. Then we'll do playoffs, including probably the most in-depth preview we'll do all year because it's a team we're not familiar with, haven't played in a while. And
we're only looking at one game right now.
And we're only previewing one game. So, but first, let's take care of the business and let you know how you can get more from us here at the Bulldog Hour. Be sure to follow and interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and follow the show on YouTube to get all of the archived videos that we have done. There also is the email or contact form on the website at bulldoghour.com. And as always, we want to thank our sponsors, May's Sandwich Shop in particular, for their help over the last few years. And then Matt Cruz, Andy Herr, and our anonymous supporters. And if you're interested in supporting the show, there are ways to do that. They're listed at bulldoghour.com. But besides the sponsorships, advertising, the in-kind donations, just spread the word and put us out there. And, like Justin always says,
like and share.
And if you see us on Friday nights at games, make sure you stop and say hi. Let us know that you like the show, that you enjoy it. A couple people have done that, and it makes us feel good. We appreciate everyone's support. And
it still catches me off guard. People will come up and make a reference to something we said or something we talked about on the show, and I kind of look at them, and then they always get this panicked look of like, "Wait, you're that guy, right?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, you're right." It always catches me off guard, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, I think what my favorite is from, I think it was the start of the league schedule. I think it was the Warwick game when Mr. Failing.
Yeah.
He was like, you guys to do the Bulldog Hour. I'm like, yeah, that's us.
Yeah,
it's like, we know who you are.
Right, exactly. It's one of those where we know who he is, but I didn't know that he knew who we were.
Yeah, so that's always appreciated. Obviously, the Failing brothers are legends in Wilson football history, so it's nice to know that they've been watching, and we'll have to reach out to them and many of those other people that we've talked about to have a quick interview like what we've been doing with the media members. And tonight we actually have 3 coach interviews to do.
It's the rare one.
Yeah, so we'll get to that shortly.
To be fair, it took some begging on our part to make it 3. So.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. So you're watching Bulldog Hour live, or if maybe you're watching or listening via YouTube or iTunes later, but we're going to do another live show in 2 weeks, Sunday, November 19th. We'll be recapping at least one game, hopefully 2 games, and maybe also saying we're looking forward to a 3rd game.
Man.
But that is all coming up in the next few weeks. So the next live Bulldog Hour is 2 weeks from tonight, Sunday, November 19th. Quick look at the schedule, and we're deep in the thick of it. There we are, November 10th. The District 3 6A quarterfinals are coming up this Friday. And how do we get there? Well, it happened with the regular season finale in Week 10. Friday, November 3rd, Wilson hosted the Conestoga Valley Buckskins, and it really wasn't much of a contest. The Buckskins were not able to prevent Wilson from scoring in any facet. It started early. It continued throughout the first quarter.
Right.
To halftime, and then Wilson was well in hand in the second team JVs. A lot of people got to play Friday night.
Yeah, which is good, and that's that's kind of one that they needed. I think I told you walking off the field. I know we've had some that are lopsided, but it wasn't that way the last few weeks, and so I said I kind of had been waiting for a game like this, and not that it was I knew that Conestoga Valley was going to be that, but that's what I wanted, and I was glad that it worked out that way. So I was pleased that they were able to kind of handle business the way that we had hoped they would against Conestoga Valley.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Wilson had their issues defensively containing the weapons and the passing offense of Conestoga Valley, but Jose Barbone, Jose Barbone is a great talent, and Steed next to him. It's tough when you got two wideouts that good, and Schwilk, the quarterback, has been didn't miss much of a beat from the 4-year starter Grant Stoltzfus leaving.
Yeah.
CV's been able to put up points. Now, they've been struggling to stop other teams. That's been their biggest issue, and they weren't able to corral the Bulldogs Friday night. And Wilson actually got on the board first on special teams, and we'll check that all out with the highlights here shortly. But why don't we go over the stats here before we dive in and take a look at some of the big plays. First downs, Wilson led that 19-7. Rushing yards, wow. 327 to -18.
Wow.
Now that accounts sacks, which
right.
we always want to point out, because Wilson did, I think, have like 5 sacks or something like that in the game. But Conestoga Valley had very few rushing attempts. I think they may have had 10 or so in that area.
Well, part of it is they're not going to rush a whole lot to begin with. And then you fall behind big early, and you're going to rush even less, and that was kind of seen. It was pretty evident by the numbers.
Conestoga Valley was able to put up 240 passing yards to Wilson's 87. Of course, the Bulldogs didn't have to throw all that much. Total yardage, Wilson at 414, Conestoga Valley at 222, and Wilson's is actually reducted by, I believe, 60 yards because of the errant snaps with the JV unit. Yeah. They lost an average of 20 yards per botched snap. So Wilson was actually closing in on 500 yards of total offense. And we actually saw, now while they didn't score, the backups of JVs were able to move the ball. They weren't just one and done.
You got a bunch of carries. They got to spread the ball around, which is good to see.
Yeah.
We talked about that before the game. You and I were hoping it would be a situation where some guys get in and get some carries that normally don't get to handle the ball a whole lot. So that was fun to see. Some of those seniors, so it's kind of special because it's senior night, but some of those younger guys too, and some guys that kind of stood out to us making plays on special teams all year. Just one of those being like Avanti Lockhart. I feel like every time there's a kickoff tackle, not every time, but like he's been in on a lot of kickoff tackles this year, which is, that shows like hustle, to me. Yeah. To me, that shows hustle.
Oh yeah, that's what special teams is.
You're running back in a mix where there's Iggy and Abdul, so
right.
Carries are going to be tough, not just for him, but for those other guys who got carries on Friday night too. I know Hunter Regal got some carries, and some other guys. So it was cool to see some of those other guys get in there and get some carries late in the game.
Yeah, we'll mention those individually, but all those guys that Justin mentioned got the rock multiple times and did some nice things with it. One of them, a senior, getting a lot of carries, which was always awesome, and then the young guys contributing as well. Wilson actually played 5 quarterbacks on Friday night.
It was kind of cool. They were rotating them in instead of like Wilson does. Quarterback runs to the sideline, kind of gets the play, runs back in. They were just at one point in the second half, they were just rotating them through. So they were like, instead of running over to get the play, they were just running out, and the next quarterback was running in with the play already. So, one of those things. Get a bunch of guys in. It was pretty cool.
Third downs, Wilson 50%, 4 of 8. Conestoga Valley just 1 of 11.
Yeah, that tells a story. The defense
was able to get off the field this week,
which is huge. We go back to some of the stats can be misleading a lot of times. The third down one is usually pretty telling.
It's pretty indicative,
especially when you compare it then to the fourth downs. Like if you hold Conestoga to 1 for 11 on third downs, but they go like 7 of 8 on fourth downs, then you're like, well, what the heck?
What's the point?
Yeah, so that didn't really help a whole lot. But they were able to hold them to 2 of 3 on fourth downs.
Right, and
so
Wilson only got 1 of 3, but I'm not sure any of them really were that important.
Right.
And the Bulldogs capitalized in the red zone 5 out of 6 tries. CV was 1 of 2. But we talk about the third downs being so important. 50% is good. Like, you want to be at least 50%.
Right.
Obviously, we want more, but 50% is fine. 1 of 11 for CV, not great, and that just shows the Wilson defense didn't have to do a lot on Friday night. Now, they gave up a couple scores, especially one big one to a very, very talented college recruit in Jose Barbone. But Conestoga Valley held the ball just 16 and a half minutes. Wilson nearly doubled them up, 31 and a half.
Yeah, pretty dominant performance, no matter kind of how you break it down there. So that's what we like to see. I know, it's tough to say kind of before a game because, first of all, it's football, and we've all seen enough football to know that that's not how you can't just assume it's going to work out that way. But we also, when you make it high school football, it's even more of a variable.
Right.
You got high school kids going out there. So, we're just really pleased that for the most part they were able to go out there and do what was expected of them this week.
All right, before we get to the individual stats, let's take a look at the highlights here from the victory over Conestoga Valley. All right, so Buckskins invading West Lawn Friday, November 3rd, senior night. Great picture opportunities throughout the evening, and that man right there would get us started. Angel Martinez, our player of the game from last week.
For returning a punt block for a touchdown, blocks the punt.
And Andrew Weller scoops it up and scores.
Right.
Not only did Martinez block it, he actually got in the way of the only defender that could make the play on Weller. So, Wilson defense then on the next series getting the sack, split that one there. I believe Hatley and Chris Price, I think. It might have been Quinn Sprout. Those guys were making a name for themselves all night. Then everyone was fooled on this, it seemed, at least down on the field. I don't know. Did you know Jurg had the ball the whole time?
So it's really hard to tell sometimes because I'm looking at the small screen that flips out from the camera. But I could tell with the pace that Jurg kept running, I could tell he had the ball, yeah. But I could also tell that no one else knew he had the ball. Or none of the guys in white could tell anyway.
So Iggy got his first touchdown there. His next one on this play after the Bulldogs forced another 3 and out and a short punt. That would tie David Gilmore's Reading Central Catholic career touchdown record. So Iggy would be looking to set a new record here this evening. Now, CV wouldn't be outdone, and they would get on the board there, but it was already 21-0, I think, at that time.
Yeah, it was.
So now here on this run by Iggy, he's going to get another record.
Right.
He breaks Nate Romig's Daniel Boone career Berks County rushing yard record, and on the very next play, he gets his 3rd touchdown on the ground of the night, and that breaks David Gilmore's record
of the first quarter.
Yeah, in the first quarter. So Wilson is up, I think, 28-7 right now,
and 2 all-time records Iggy has already.
And the next scrimmage play, Schwalk finds Barbone for an 80-yard score. They've been doing that a lot this year,
and it was tough because he had a step or two, but it wasn't like it was completely blown. We've seen some of those this year where it was completely blown.
No, for sure.
No, it's just he's bigger and faster. That's all that play really was.
Wilson comes back on the next series and say, hey, we can throw it too. Jurg to Roberson, not once but twice. The second one for the score.
Beautiful passes both times.
They were right on the money.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
And Roberson gets the score on senior night. So Wilson's now up 35-14. The defense just starts to do their thing. Eddie Ortiz, who is climbing up the program career sack list, gets another one there. And now we get to see a great play-action pass from Jurg to Quinn Sprout.
Who's fighting for the extra
yards.
Fights for the extra yards. Got another 6-7 yards there. That was awesome.
And Jurg comes back on the very next play, I believe, or a couple plays later. Everyone thinks it's going to Iggy. Abdul wide open, gets into the end zone.
Perfect example of teams are going to sell out to stop Iggy. And other guys were able to take advantage of that tonight.
So now Wilson's up 42-14. Defense swarming. Sprout gets in on another sack. Then we're going to see a big run from Reynoso. And
man, Jose Barbone.
The only
is
one
fast.
that can catch him is Jose Barbone,
Right.
and he tried his best to stop him.
Right.
But he's
And
eventually
then
taken
there was a
out.
moment there where I was like, he might carry him into the end zone, but it was a really good try.
Now, that drive would stall and Wilson would end up kicking a field goal to go up 45-14.
But another thing there, man, Frankie Cox has really come along this season.
Yep.
Has hit his groove, and that's a big addition to the team.
Great jump on the snap by senior linebacker Trevor Hatley
He
for
was
the
doing
sack
that a
there.
lot on Friday night.
And now we're going to see what will be the last of Mr. Reynoso for the night. On a punt return, he goes 71 yards
And
for
off
the
he
score, bouncing off a few
goes.
would-be
Run
tacklers.
over a few guys at the 45, but that was the only time he got touched.
Yep.
So,
And,
that counts
he's
as a
congratulated by his
counts
teammates.
as a broken tackle, but in reality, emphasize on the breaking because he ran the kid over.
Now we're going to see Jurg use
good
his
line
wheels here.
play.
Yeah, great.
Give
A lot of
him
time.
all day.
Nothing open. Jurg, 15-yard gain. People
Yeah.
were hyped about that.
Yeah.
So right before halftime, Wilson took a timeout. David Gilmore from Central Catholic was there, and he actually presented a game ball and congratulated
That was awesome.
Iggy
And I think he actually
on the
was
record.
on the field and kind of giving some words of wisdom before the game too. So that's a cool thing, especially, there's Barbone returning a pick in the second half.
That was the
Right.
first offensive play of the second half.
But
So 52-21 Wilson.
It's cool to see guys from all over the county because David Gilmore is not a Wilson grad, or anything like that.
the old
but-
Reading Central Catholic.
Right, exactly. So, but Iggy he kind of transcends like the schools aspect, and he's in the Berks County elite. So it was kind of a cool thing to see.
He did mention to me that he didn't think anyone was going to top his single-season rushing record because it's over 2,400 yards.
That would be really hard to do.
I mean, think about that. If you say you play 12
So-
games, you'd have to get 200 yards
Here
per game.
And I this is unfair because I haven't ever seen him play, but just from the talk of people who know, I feel like
Seniors being carried off here.
Is it Brandon George at BC?
I think you're right.
Right. I feel like he could do it, but he won't because they kill everyone, so
Right.
he's not going to get the chance.
Right.
Or could have the chance, but it's just not something that's going to happen.
So Wilson wins 52-21 on senior night. We got to see some pictures there of the seniors getting carried off by the underclassmen. A fun tradition that happens every year, and it was all about Iggy on the evening, and the seniors getting to go out. Right. Finish the regular season like this.
We kind of throw it around, and I feel like we kind of make light of it sometimes, but sometimes we're being dead serious. But as Iggy goes, this team goes. Like that's just the reality of it, right? Well, Iggy had his way with it on Friday night, and the team pretty much had their way with it. And it was nice to see because sometimes it can be a little awkward when you have some of the things set up. Like everyone knew Iggy needed 52 yards. You know what I mean? So like, is it going to be forced? Is it going to do? Well, they were able to kind of in the flow of the game just feed him early and often, and it really worked out well. It was interesting because the first time Wilson it looked like they were going to get the ball. They blocked the punt and get it there. And then CB's punting into the wind, so we get the ball and it's a short field. So like he needed 52 yards, and the first couple of times Wilson scores, they didn't even really have the chance to get him those yards. So it was just interesting, but the team was able to go out and take care of business, and it was a lot of fun on Friday night. Like you said, a lot of seniors got a lot of playing time because of the situation, and some of them are just in that spot usually. So it all around was pretty good. So what we like to see.
Absolutely. So, individual statistics, senior quarterback Connor Jurg, 6 of 8. He's been very efficient all year, very accurate. Only at 87 yards, but 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but
we saw
it's kind
nice
of,
passes to Roberson.
Right, and it's definitely a sense of what was needed. Like they did not need him to pass the ball.
No, they did not.
A couple times they did it to just kind of make sure everybody's not just like forget 9 in the box or 8 in the box. They're make sure they're not putting 11 in the box.
Right. And it's nice to have that veteran quarterback, lots of experience, nice mobility, very good, probably underrated arm and pocket ability. It's not so much that if Iggy gets stopped, that Jurg can't do it. It's all about the protection. Because if he's given time,
right,
he's accurate.
Right, and that's kind of the key
I mean,
with it, too.
That's kind of true probably for any quarterback.
If they're not able to let Iggy run, then they're probably having trouble pass protecting,
right,
too.
Yeah.
Right, they go hand in hand. So, so we say as Iggy goes, but, and sounds even more cliche, as the offensive line goes, the game,
that's right.
The game is won in the trenches.
In the trenches.
Yeah,
So Jurg actually had the 3 rushes for 54 yards. He had we saw 2 of them in the highlights. One early in the game that kind of fooled everyone, and then another scramble later. But his backfield mate, Iggy Reynoso, 14 carries for 177 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, and he had that 71-yard punt return touchdown. Justin mentioned sophomore Avante Lockhart actually was second on the team in rushing with 8 carries for 75 yards, and that was with limited appearances.
I think it was pretty much like a series. They just handed it to him a bunch of times. Maybe
I think it was 2. I think it was 2.
Yeah, but he
had a nice big, I think, 33-yard run that we saw in the highlights as well. Senior Hunter Regal carried 9 times for 51 yards. We saw a couple of those in the highlights. Yeah. He had one where he ran over a guy and another where the team pushed him like another almost 10 yards down the field, which was great. Roberson, 2 catches, 63 yards, and the score.
Pretty much a drive.
Right, yeah, one drive for him, but he got in the stat book for that. McFoy had 3 for 10 and 1 touchdown receiving. Defensively, again, not on the field a lot. They got beat a couple times, but all in all, a very good effort from the defense. Freshman Troy Corson had 4 tackles. Senior Chris Price, 3.5 tackles, 1.5 of those for a loss, a half of them being a sack. Senior linebacker Trevor Hatley had 3 tackles, 1.5 for loss on 1.5 sacks, and 2 pass breakups. And Eddie Ortiz, as I mentioned, 2 tackles, 1.5 for loss, and another 1.5 sacks for him. And I know we say, we like to spread the wealth around. We like to point out guys that have great games, even if, statistically they weren't the leader. We like to give it out to guys that have proved their mettle and showed how important they are to the team, which I think we've done this year. But there are just some instances where you can't ignore the statistical beast that Iggy Reynoso has been. So for his efforts in Week 10, he has been named our player of the game against Conestoga Valley, and it's kind of the mountaintop for him to finish his regular season career at Wilson. And I think in the 2 years he's been player of the game like 6 times or something like that.
And like you've mentioned before,
he probably could be every game.
It's only 6 because we like to spread it around. Now there are some games where other guys step up, and it's clearly not that he has a bad game, not that Iggy has a bad game, but there are other guys who step up and have spectacular performances. And that's not to say they don't normally, but man, he just every game there's something where you're just like, wow, when you watch him. Whether it's running guys over on a punt return, or whether it's, just you think he's down, and, you talk about how sometimes you see the running back, the pile move. Now, not to say that the linemen aren't helping sometimes, but sometimes you see Iggy do it, and there's 3 or 4 guys trying to take him down, and he just keeps moving. He's just, and we've talked to the line too. It's fun to block for a guy like that, because if you give him the blocks, he's gone.
Yep.
So it's a lot of fun to watch him. Everybody has great things to say about how hard he works and all that stuff. So it's good to see that pay off. So.
And we're gonna stick with the Reynoso theme here for a little bit. I mentioned it during the highlights and whatnot, but he set a few milestones this year. While the team's been streaking, he's been racking up yardage and touchdown. We already mentioned that he broke the record set by David Gilmore for career touchdowns in general, not just rushing, receiving, returns.
Right.
He broke that. What was it? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, he did that. I forget when.
Was it against? I'm trying to think of who was it. Penn Manor, maybe.
Yeah, it was at home.
Yeah, it was one of those games that just a few weeks ago. He broke David Gilmore's record for career touchdowns, regardless of how they were scored, for Berks County. And then we saw in the highlights, and now here I got the pictures of him, of Reynoso breaking Gilmore's rushing touchdown record, and then him breaking Nate Romig of Daniel Boone's Berks County career rushing record. All that happened in the span of 2 plays on Friday night. For his career, Iggy's up to 4,618 rushing yards. which eclipsed Romig's 4,492, and obviously Iggy's got at least one game to go. And Iggy now has 65 career rushing touchdowns, and the old record was 64 by Gilmore. So, I think overall, I want to say his touchdown record, he's extended it to like 73, because I think he might have had 3 receiving last year, 3 this year, and a couple returns thrown in there. So he's in like the low to mid 70s overall for total touchdowns, also a Burke's record. And, depending on how many games they play and how things shape up, he could potentially get to 5,000 career rushing yards.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll probably have an indication.
He's 382 short right now.
Right.
So he needs 2 big games.
He needs 2 big games.
Or 1 massive game. Could you imagine?
No, I can't imagine a scenario. Only because...
Tell that to Pete Gilmore in 1999.
Yeah, but there's a lot that goes into this, and some of the things we've talked about before. But like last year, we know he was sitting at 295 and 6 touchdowns at halftime.
At halftime, yeah.
I can't imagine him getting more than that
right,
in a
like,
half.
Yeah,
and
right.
I can't imagine him being in a game where he's getting those kinds of numbers.
He'd have to break a lot of huge runs.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah.
So, so for the year, Iggy's at 200 carries for just under 1,400 yards and 22 rushing touchdowns. He had over 1,600 yards rushing last year, over 1,000 in 2015 at Hamburg, and over 500 as a freshman at Hamburg in 2014. So, all eyes will be on Iggy Friday night again. And
who Redline is going to look to stop. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Because as we mentioned it before, they're going to put everybody up to stop him. Because if they don't, well, thank you. That's basically how that's going to go.
We'll take that 6. Thank you very much. So, and it wasn't just Iggy
No.
making some noise Friday night. I've been hyping this up for a while now, and it finally happened. Coach Dahms, the victory over Conestoga Valley was his 400th with the program. He won 264 games as an assistant coach with John Gursky, Jerry Slemmer, and Jim Cantafio from 1976 to 2005. He won 136 now as head coach, the most recent being Friday night. And 400, I mean, that's impressive.
It's insane.
Longevity and success all rolled into one. And when we talked to Coach Dahms very briefly just to talk about this, and it's something that I genuinely think he's actually proud of. Because when does he ever accept the hype and praise that people give to him? Almost never. It never happens. And he just was, I think he was very thrilled to get to this milestone.
Right, and I think it helps, too, that it was the end of the regular season. And not that the season is over, and he obviously understands that, and we do as well. But it is kind of the close of a chapter, So, like, there is some closure at this point, and it's kind of like, all right, we're starting over again moving forward. Because I feel like in the midst of things, like, if this, just for example, if this win were to have been sitting there and they have Township the next week or something like that, like, I could see him, being like, yeah, whatever, we've got a tough game next week. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I think just of the circumstances played to it. But yes, I think the massive number, 400 is an absurd number. That's an absurd number. It's just how long you've been with one program, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, it's his 42nd season with the team. It's his 12th as head coach. It's just crazy to think that you can. I wish I knew more about not just Pennsylvania high school coaching records, but nationwide coaching records. Like, how many people have been on a staff for that long?
Right.
I feel like it doesn't happen that often.
And if you do it, how many are at a single school for that long? Like, lots of people, not lots. I'm sure there, some of those numbers from, like, some of those coal region coaches that were there forever,
Right.
Like,
well, yeah, but there's a gentleman online that I follow on Twitter by the name, I believe it's Josh Funk. Okay. He is kind of a Pennsylvania high school football historian, or seems to be. I should reach out to him and see if he knows.
I know Mount Carmel has an insane number of wins.
Well, they go back to the 1890s, don't
right?
they?
Yeah. So I know
that's 50 years before Wilson started.
Right. You have some just insane numbers, but like that doesn't necessarily guarantee. I use Mount Carmel as an example because I know the program isn't just old and successful, so like, you just have some of those crazy numbers, but like you said, that's a different scenario, and that doesn't mean there was one coach. Like, even if it is, you're talking a small number at this point.
I think more crazy to think about is that, and I'm disappointed this was off by 1 week because it would have been awesome to happen at the same time. But, last week against Hempfield Wilson as a program won its 550th game. So now they're at 551. So that means there have only been 151 victories without Coach Dahms on the sideline.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about. And, well, this wasn't during the interview. This is just with us talking with him and his family after the game. But he sounds very energetic and motivated to continue coaching. And, hey, maybe in a decade from now or less, as he would hope, we're talking about 500 victories.
Yeah, we kind of threw that number out there jokingly. And we're like, hey, average 10 wins a year. And he kind of jokingly responded, if I only average 10, I probably won't last another 10 years. Which is, it's obviously just kind of going back and forth. But, we've talked about that in terms of the number of games that some of the seniors have played when we get through these. Absurd numbers. Some of them are playing 5 seasons worth.
Right.
And you're guaranteed, in the way Wilson does things, you're guaranteed 30 games.
Right.
Because,
unless you're that rare freshman.
Right. So then you're guaranteed 40. And we get some kids that are north
60.
of 50. Yeah. Like that's absurd.
I mean, think about it. Some of those kids playing close to 60 games.
I think when we talked about, like, Ike's numbers.
Yeah, you're talking about, I think that 2015
you hit some of those teams. If you make a run as a freshman, off to a good start. So.
Yeah, well, it was Dantzler, John Fox, Ike Schonauer. Those guys came up in 2012. They were 12-2. 2013, 12-1. 2014, 14-1. And then 2015, 10-2. So, you add all that up, that's a lot of games. What was it? How many is that? 58?
Yeah.
Nearly 60 games in 4 years.
Nuts.
So they played almost an additional 2 seasons over what they should have.
And almost double what the average
what your normal 10th, 11th, 12th grader would get to play, which is 30.
That's nuts.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So, but congratulations again to Coach Dahms. And here, like I said, here's to the next 400.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to these interviews now, and let's see if I can find. Maybe we'll start with. Well, it probably makes sense to start with Coach Dahms.
All right, we're here with Coach Dahms after the regular season finale, a win over Conestoga Valley. Coach Dahms, we just really have one question tonight. As you may be aware, tonight is your 400th total victory at Wilson High School. What can you tell us about that experience? I mean, we might need a new phone with more storage to tell us everything, but if you had to talk a little bit about what that experience has been like, what can you tell us?
Well, I'm old.
I didn't want that to be the leading question, but you hit it.
You know what? It's been great. I can pick out certain games that I remember. Some from the 70s, some from the 80s, some from the 90s, some from the 2000s, some from the teens. And what can you say? I mean, I've been lucky to have a great staff, to be part of a great staff. And, kids buy in. That's an attribute. That goes to the program.
Well, thank you. We'll let you go since it's getting a little cold, but thank you. Congratulations on your 400th win, and maybe we can make it 401 next week.
I hope so.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so real quick, real easy. We just wanted to make sure we caught up with him after that huge milestone, and it's good time Friday night.
Yeah, it was fun to see. And like you said, we kind of been keeping an eye on that and knew kind of the circumstances around it. And then a couple weeks ago we realized that could be the last game at home. It's cool that it was at home.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah, definitely. So now we're gonna go back and talk about the other milestones from Iggy, but we didn't talk with him. He was a very popular person post game.
Yeah.
As you saw in the one picture on the player of the game, 69 News was there pretty quickly to get a video interview with him. So we decided to talk to the coaches, and Justin caught up with his positional coach, Jake Peterson, who has a nifty little nugget that he brought up during the week, and of course we couldn't let it go. So Justin talked with Jake Peterson about Iggy and the Berks County career rushing record.
All right, joining us for the Bulldog Hour is Coach Jake Peterson. We just have a couple quick questions, Coach. First of all, tonight was a historic night for Iggy. What can you tell us about Iggy's work ethic or his transition as he's come here to Wilson?
I'll tell you, Iggy when he came here, it took him a little bit to learn the offense, but the thing that really stood out with him was he's constantly trying to learn, always had his ear everywhere it could be to try to learn the offense, and he obviously is physically extremely talented. So, once he understood the nuances of our reads while running the ball, you can really see him take off, and had 2 great seasons here. A pleasure to work with.
All right, thank you. So with the offense tonight, the offense seemed to be clicking fairly well. After playing some high quality teams the last few weeks, it's been tough to get things going at times. What did you guys work on to really, or what did you want to see tonight? And hopefully, what did you see tonight from the team?
Yeah, we're working on ways to get the ball in the hands of our playmakers. So we have to come up with some creative ways. Teams have been stacking the box a lot lately, so we got to find ways to get the ball out in space to those guys to give them the ability to make plays. And the line's been doing a great job. Putting things together and getting those gaps for those kids to run through. So, that was big focus is finding ways to build things off of our base plays and get the ball out in space to a couple of our playmakers. So.
All right, thank you. And one last quick one here, something you and I have talked about already. Talk a little bit about your unique connection to this rushing record that Iggy was able to obtain tonight.
Yeah, so I played with the kid that Nate Romig, who Nate was a freshman when I was a senior at Daniel Boone. So he was one of our running backs at Daniel Boone that year. I was a quarterback at the time, so it's pretty cool. Nate's a great guy, and I know he's really happy to see his record beaten by a kid like Iggy, who has really earned it with all the hard work he's put in.
All right, thank you, Coach, for giving us some time tonight. Congratulations and good luck next week, whoever it may be.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so that was our second interview there with running backs coach Jake Peterson. Has that really cool connection, having played with the former record holder and now coaching the current record holder. And hopefully, should someone ever supplant Iggy, he's coaching them as well.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I think we all would be okay with that. So, all right, we did have one more interview. I said we got the trifecta after the win against Conestoga Valley, and we got to catch up with a coach who we talked with in the preseason but haven't talked to after any of the games in September or October. So we thought it was time that we talked with defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber.
Let's wrap this up.
Are you cold? I'm pretty good.
I'm warm, man. I'm nice and warm.
I'm good. I'm fine.
Who am I looking at? Okay, you're doing
look
it.
at him.
That. Okay.
Don't look at this.
Okay.
Oh, you're already going.
Does my hair look good?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Okay, now we're post game with defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber. Oh. You too. That's kind of mirrors last year where you gave one to Tommy O'Brien at Conestoga Valley. So now you got the favor returned.
You know what? I just remembered that. Thank you for reminding me.
All right, Coach. So we haven't talked to you since the preseason. So we've been through 10 games now. We're on to the second season, though. Don't know who's going to be the opponent, so we won't touch on any of that. But just talk to us, what were the type of improvements you saw in these first 10 games that your team's played this year?
We're executing better. As you know, we're about executing the defense, doing your job. I mean, that's our motto, do your job. Bill Belichick supposedly invented it, but I said it before he did. But
got
you know,
we're copyright.
I know, I should. But no, we're in a position where we're starting to execute better. We're still making mistakes. Don't get me wrong. We're still young kids playing. We're still playing with 2 freshmen and 4 sophomores, and it's a progress. But we're getting better, and we're executing better. We're making less and less mistakes, which in turn is making us better. So the mistakes were in double digits in the first few weeks, and now we're down to making 4 or 5 mistakes a game. In this game, we really only made 2 big mistakes in coverages, and we gave up a couple points, but the kids are getting better.
It's been widely held by many people in the community, and also from media members like Red and Eagle, that Wilson is so strong over the years because there are senior members of the team that step up after having been unknowns as underclassmen. What's 1 or 2 of those guys that you feel have filled that role this season?
Well, Sean McAndrews not playing last year. That's a huge thing for us. Sean didn't play a whole lot. He played as a sophomore, didn't play last year. That really helped us out. I mean, offensive line-wise, you have Drake. I mean, that kid, worked his butt off and earned himself a spot playing this year. Defensively, Eddie, the guys who's back to me. Eddie's at end, and Price is an end, and Wyatt inside, and Hatley, and actually, I'll go Hunter Rigo. Hunter Rigo, we didn't expect a whole lot of defensively, and he's been an outside linebacker playing sometimes, not playing as much sometimes, but he's really stepped up and did a nice job for us.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it a little at the first question, but the youth, especially on your defense that we've seen, when we talked to you in August, was there anything in your mind that you thought at this point of the season you'd be playing so many 10th graders and even freshmen on your defense?
We knew, Matty Fry was with us last year, so we expected him to step in and contribute a little bit. But Troy Corson, we had no idea. Troy grew up as a 9th grader. Hey, he'll play JV, get better, and hopefully help as a sophomore. We never expected to step in. So no, going into it, we thought we were solid at D-back and we wouldn't have to play a lot of guys. But unfortunately, a lot of injuries, nagging injuries. We have had our secondary together for 2 games all year. That's it. So, and again, we're missing 2 guys tonight. So we're back to full strength Monday. Well, actually 3 guys tonight, I'm sorry. So we'll get back to full strength. But no, we didn't plan on it. But sometimes you got to, do what you got to do.
We don't know the playoff opponent. We don't know if it'll be at home or not. And I'm not going to say which one do you want to play because I know you won't tell me that. But is there one that is a harder matchup of the potential playoff matchups that is tough for you? CD East, Red Line, Dallastown.
CD East would be a tough draw. They're throwing the ball a lot. They have a very athletic quarterback, left-hander. Reminds me of Neubauer from a few years ago. I'd prefer to see a team that runs the ball because we're pretty good against the run. We're playing well. We're pretty big. We're physical up front. I don't want to see a team that spreads it out and throws it all over the place. Like tonight, they have a really good team. We're going to have to stunt. We're going to do some different things defensively and coverage-wise to hold that. But I'd rather see a team that wants to run the football. A run-heavy team. I'd rather see that in the playoffs.
All right, last thing here, Coach Dahms got his 400th victory tonight with the Wilson football program.
Cool, that's
his
awesome.
136th as a head coach. I know you've known him for a long time, having played for him and now coached with him. What does Doug mean to this team?
Doug is our calming force. We get emotional about things, we get upset, and we don't fly off the handle, but he kind of goes, hold on, let's take a step back. He just thinks things through a lot better than we do. And we're learning a lot. Like, years ago when I was here, I was, you could see my emotions everywhere. And now he taught me how to actually motivate kids. He taught me how to keep my emotions under control. And he taught me to be a better leader. And that's what I'm trying to do to get the kids to be the best players. Now, kids, and one thing, the big thing he taught me was every kid lives by the same rules, but you got to treat every kid differently. As far as you got to enforce rules differently. Some kids really handle being yelled at and being scolded, where other kids you got to put your arm around them and pick them up and bring them along. And that's what he's really taught me to do, just to try to read kids as early as possible, and that's how you get the most out of them.
All right. Anything else to add, Justin? No? All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can talk to you again next week.
Hope so.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, so first time in a while we got to hear from Ernie Wolber, but I think it was a good one. A lot of good insights and talk about the potential matchups that we now know what they're going to be for the playoffs. So I'm sure all of you are well aware that the District 3 6A power ratings were finalized yesterday, and the brackets were officially unveiled today. And, well, Wilson is making an appearance in the second season. And not only are they doing it, they actually jumped all the way up to third.
Which we didn't even know was possible.
We thought maybe fourth.
There was an outside shot at 4, and we ended up at 3. Whew,
yeah,
that's crazy.
It's crazy. And Mike Drago on Twitter, or maybe it might have been Roberts, one of them, either Drago or Roberts, said that just 2 weeks ago Wilson was 9th in the power ratings.
And thinking you can't let the hangover from Manheim Township, cost you at Hempfield or the season's over. Not the season's over, but there's no second season at that point. Well, you end up, man, for all the talk, and I know there's 2 points to this. The first talk being, I know Wilson, sometimes people are like, well, the LL Section 1 is so weak. Well, Section 1 has the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th seed. Now, that being said, I am fully aware that the mid-pen, is it Commonwealth Division this year?
Yeah.
Was loaded.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely loaded. You had a
number of 3 teams here.
You had a number of really good teams. And Harrisburg.
And State College.
Right.
He's not even in District 3.
Is Bishop McDevitt Commonwealth, or are they
No, they're not.
Okay,
no,
I didn't
no.
think so.
No, CD East had a crossover game with them at the end, but no, and they're 5A, but they're not in the same division. No, so it's Cumberland Valley. So Harrisburg won it at 10-0. I don't know how it shakes up next, because I think both State College and Cumberland Valley were 8-2.
Harrisburg, the 5A number 1 seed.
Right.
Mercy ruled easily Cumberland Valley, the 6A.
I would like to see Harrisburg versus Pine Richland, or Harrisburg versus St. Joe's Prep. I know that's a 5-6A crossover there,
I
but
agree.
Because I don't see anyone beating Harrisburg. Now maybe is it Archbishop Wood? Is that who they lost to last year?
I think so. Yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting, but
we'll see. But it's tough.
Man,
it's tough to imagine anyone beating Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And getting a return trip to the state final. But anyways, back in 6A, number 1 seed Cumberland Valley, as expected over the last few weeks. Their only losses were, they lost to Harrisburg this week, but that was kind of expected. And they did drop to game 2 the 7 seed Central Dauphin, but that is one of their classics. That is a huge rivalry, and every year that game is hugely important. And
I believe that was earlier in the season.
It was like week 5 or something like that.
So.
Yeah, it was like the 2nd or 3rd week of league play. And Central Dauphin actually ended up beating Cumberland Valley that night. But Cumberland Valley is your number 1 seed, and they get to take on fellow Mid-Penn Commonwealth foe Central Dauphin East, who they beat earlier this year. Then the 4-5 matchup is Hempfield, who we just saw a few weeks ago. They finished 7-3, earned the 4, a home game against Dallastown, who they previously played and beat earlier this season. Then on the Wilson side of the bracket, it is Manheim Township, the 2 at 9-1, with their only loss being to Governor Mifflin, taking on Central Dauphin, the 7 seed, 6-4 record. Dauphin actually lost to Township earlier this year as well, so another rematch.
Missing 2 50-plus yard field goals towards the end to try and tie it up.
So this is probably the best game of the week, if I had to guess, would be this 2-7 matchup in Neffsville, Manheim Township against Central Dauphin.
The 7 is definitely misleading.
I think all of these are misleading.
Right.
Because, like you said, the LL Section 1 got 2, 3, and 4, but...
Well, I feel like for each of these 6A mid-pen teams, just take one loss off there, because Harrisburg, no one was going to beat them. No one. Literally no one.
No one has yet. So,
right.
And
I don't see a public school
and they've been
them.
crushing people.
They haven't had a close game. Yeah, it's insane.
So, and then there's Wilson hosting Redline, the 6th seed out of York. And, let's talk a little bit about the Redline area Lions. Now, unfortunately, I'm without my stats book, and I don't have it online yet, so I don't know how many times Wilson has played Redline in the past. I believe it's at least 4. I know of 2 for sure, but the Red Lion area Lions are coached by Jesse Shea. They're out of the York Adams Division 1 League, and we haven't played them, though, since 2005, actually. So Coach Dahms hasn't played against them since he became head coach. It was actually the year before he took over. Wilson last played Red Lion, and it was down at Red Lion on September 2nd, 2005. Wilson came away with a 39-35 victory. It was a offensive slugfest. Lots of points on the board, and some familiar names for the Bulldogs were on the field that night. Sophomore running back Jake Stopper carried 32 times for 222 yards and a score. Senior quarterback Eric Hetrick was 17 of 29 for 308 yards, 5 touchdowns, which I believe is tied for a school record, with 2 interceptions. And junior wide receiver Josh Smith, who was just this year inducted into the Wilson Athletic Hall of Fame, caught 6 of Hetrick's passes for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now you just have to go back one more year to 2004. The last Red Lion win in the series was at Gursky on September 4th, and that was more of a defensive game as the Lions won that one 14-7. So what about Red Lion in 2017? So they went 8-2 in the York Adams Division I. Slugging it out with Dallastown, Central York, and York William Penn. Central York was on the outside looking in 6A. They were the 9 seed. York William Penn is, I believe, the 5 seed in 5A, and will go to Governor Mifflin on Friday night.
So just a quick shout out there. I know Mifflin will probably be favored in that one.
I would think so,
Pretty
yes.
good. However, just a quick shout out to York. Went 1-9 last year,
and then go 9-1
to go 9-1 this year. That's congratulations! Like, that's awesome. That's good for 5A football. It's good for District 3 football when the cities Harrisburg,
schools.
York, McCaskey has its moments, and if Reading can get things going, like I like what they've been really working hard in Reading, and McCaskey. I know they've got a coach in place now too. But it's just good for everyone if they can get those things involved. So shout out to York real quick in that league. So.
Yes, a very good job by them. They get to play Mifflin, and then whoever wins that game gets to play Harrisburg.
Yeah, congratulations.
So,
good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Also with Dallastown. So those 4 teams, a lot of good games this year between those 4 teams in the York Adams Division I. Red Lion got off to a fast start this year, winning their first 7 games. At Waynesboro versus Daniel Boone. And then in week 3 they got a gimme. I believe it's 1 or 2-0, but that's because it wasn't played. Red Lion got a forfeit win because there were fights at Chambersburg School District the week of the game, and then the day before or the morning of the home opener for Chambersburg against Red Lion, there was a threat of gun violence, and that game had to be forfeit. So Red Lion actually only has played 9 games on the field this season. After that, they beat William Penn 31-14, which I believe was their only loss this year. Red Lion then beat Northeastern and Southwestern at home, followed by a road victory at New Oxford, and then became the last 3 weeks of the season where Red Lion struggled a little bit, falling to Central York 24-21, beating Spring Grove 49-21, but they couldn't close out the season with a win, and that dropped them from a top 4 seed to a bottom 4 seed after losing to Dallastown, who leapt them for the 5 seed. It was at Dallastown. They fell 40-27. So Red Lion struggling here a little bit of late, but they are an interesting team. Again, one we haven't seen in 12 years. They're led by a dual-headed offensive threat in senior quarterback Zach Thorne and senior running back Zachary Crossland. And they have an offense similar to Wilson, although I'd say they are more likely to let the quarterback run the ball than Wilson has been. Of course, we have Iggy, and it's tough for other teams to say the same. Nothing against Red Lion's stable of running backs, but Iggy is one of the best that Wilson's had, and Wilson's had a lot of good running backs. Right. So why don't we actually, I have here the ability to pull up some highlights of one of Red Lion's games, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Let's see if I can do this. All right, so this is from their game, I think, against Spring Grove. So this was just in week 9, just a little bit ago, and you can check out some of their highlights. They are in the red and white uniforms, and you can see a flea flicker. So I'm sure Coach Wolber will have the defense staying on their guys in the secondary. with the ability for those trick plays. Here you're going to see what I'm talking about. Quarterback likes to pull the ball on the read option plays, and he can make some people miss. Yeah, and you'll see more of that here. Again, first-year starter as a senior, but, man, he has been electric.
He's just outrunning people, too. Man, whew.
And we'll go over his stats and his teammates' stats as well, but he's been quite the player for them, so he's very dangerous. Check out him. He's number 1. He'll be at Gursky Friday night. And he's quite the player. And he doesn't just do it with his legs. He can do it with his arm, too. Of course, he's going to get some help here by his receiver making a play. But he's a dual 1,000-yard player. He threw for over 1,000 yards so far this season. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards. From a quarterback, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, that was only in, well, so this is crazy to think about it. So they played 9 games. You know, they got the forfeit win. But he only has passing stats for 8 games because I think there may have been a game where he didn't throw the ball.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's some defensive highlights for you. I'm trying to see the number. Is it 11? I think based on my research, number 11 seemed to be one of their better defensive players. He's actually a junior, Elijah Workinger. 81 tackles, 4 for a loss, a sack, 2 interceptions, 3
Looks like
breakups,
a big kid too.
A forced fumble, and a fumble recovery, and he's only a junior. Defensively, they're also led by number 30 linebacker Jamel Foster, 56 tackles, 6 for loss, an interception, 3 breakups, and a punt block. And they also have a couple other strong players to mention. And let's close these highlights here. All right. Let's see, where are my stats? So, yeah, Zach Thorne, the quarterback, number 1, and running back, number 3, Zachary Crossland. Those are their 2 big guys on offense. Thorne's over 1,000 yards passing and receiving. He hasn't thrown any interceptions. He has 14 passing touchdowns.
Super efficient.
19 rushing touchdowns, so 33 total touchdowns.
Basically 70% completion percentage.
Right, yeah, just under 70. And Crossland, the main running back, only 80 carries, but over 500 yards, 6 scores. He's also tied for the lead in receptions with 16, and he's a stud on defense, too. 43 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and an interception. The primary wide receiver, Denny Dennison, number 7, a senior, also 16 catches, 349 yards, and nearly half of his catches are touchdowns. 7 touchdowns. Also be on the lookout for junior running back Tyler Ness, number 4, and junior running back and defensive back Justin Dillon, number 27. He's got 41 tackles, 2 for loss, a sack, and 3 pass breakups. So Red Lion getting it done, especially on offense. That quarterback is scary. Now, we've seen Wilson play other great quarterbacks this year. Cameron Wolf against Mifflin. TJ Purging against Springford. Let's see, Grayson Klein against Warwick.
Yeah.
And then we saw them take on Himmelsbach against Hempfield. And Zacchaeus Salesman, Lebanon. So this isn't the first time Wilson's seeing a very good quarterback. And they're going to be able to. They're going to need to stop him because he is the heart and soul of that offense. All right, so that about covers it. That's the preview of the game this coming Friday against Red Lion District 3 6A quarterfinals. Should Wilson win that one, they will play the winner of the Manheim Township Central Dolphin game. Should the Rams upset the Blue Streaks and Wilson beat Red Lion, Wilson would actually host Central Dolphin the next week.
Yeah, so
if Wilson wins and MT wins, Wilson will go back to Neffsville the following week.
Yeah, so either way, you're getting a rematch. Well, if Wilson wins, either way, you're getting a rematch in the second round of the
semifinals.
Right. So, but like we said a number of times, that doesn't matter if we don't take care of business this week.
Yep.
So
it's all about Red Lion.
All about Red Lion.
Red Lion. Red Lion.
That's right. So take care of business on Friday night at Gursky. It's nice to have that home game. We kind of thought that was an outside chance, so to have that come be a possibility is pretty awesome.
It is awesome. So I think that's pretty much everything here. Make sure you like Wilson Bulldogs on the Bulldog Hour fan pages on
share.
Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. We do the live gamecast with Justin Burke. He helps me out Friday nights doing the video. I'm taking the photos and updating Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We get the post-game interviews. Hopefully we're doing that this week because that means we
more
won.
interviews means more wins.
Anything else to say about the regular season or the start of the playoffs?
No, I'm proud of the way the guys were able to kind of ride the roller coaster at times this season and finish strong and hopefully have a few more wins in them. So keep it going, guys.
Absolutely, for sure. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bulldog Hour. For Justin Raffoff and the Wilson Football Program, I'm Joe Mays, and remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.